What's up guys, welcome to Millennium in Actual. I'm Jake Aaron and today we are going to be starting our Weapons and Tactics 101 course. Now, this is not designed to be an all-encompassing course. That's what my online training course is for. But I want to give you an option at no cost to you so that you can get started right off the bat. Now, before we cover any of the cool fun stuff, we have to go over safety. When it comes to weapons and firearms in particular, which is what most of this course is going to surround, we have to consider safety. If you can't be safe, then it makes no sense to learn anything else that I'm going to be teaching you in this course. Now, I definitely don't want you to be skipping ahead because this information here is 100 times more important than even knowing how to use a firearm. So let's get started. Now, what we're going to be going over are firearm safety rules. I've actually met a lot of people who have been around and shot firearms their entire life and they don't know these firearm safety rules and they don't practice them. If you can memorize and put into practice these firearm safety rules, then your odds of having an accident drastically decrease. The first one is treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Now, this sounds like common sense, but most people don't actually practice this. For example, if you have a firearm and you're at a firing range, you have people to your left and to your right. You do not want to be holding a firearm like this. It needs to be pointed downrange towards your target or wherever the impact area that's safe is at all times. If you need to unload it, you can turn your body downrange, you can clear it, you can also load it, make ready, and then present it back down the range. When you set your firearm down after you're done shooting, down range. Now, if you don't have a table or if you're at an outdoor range, this is why a lot of people, when they hold their firearms, they'll hold it down towards the ground. Now, considerations. A lot of people will say, always point it down, always point it up. If you're on a second story, there's people below you. Maybe don't point it down. Now, hopefully you're not firing your gun inside of a building, but if you're doing dry fire practice or if you're just loading it, when you rack that first round, maybe it's because it's for home defense and you want to store it on a shelf with a round loaded so that you don't have to worry about racking it in the middle of the night if there's an intruder. Consider that when you're racking that round, that the gun is not pointed down if you're on a second story. The same goes for pointing a firearm up in the air. If you're on a first floor and there's levels above you, you want to be considerate of that. Now, sometimes there's just no option, which is fine, because unless there's a mechanical malfunction within the firearm, it's not going to go off. But at the very least, you can point it in a direction where the least amount of people are or are likely to be. The best way to think about this is imagine a laser coming out of the end of the barrel, and everywhere you point it, it's going to shoot, destroy, or kill that target. If you can remember the laser, then you'll be a lot more careful on the range and just inside your home. The second firearm safety rule is never point your weapon at anything you don't intend to kill or shoot. Now, again, this sounds like common sense, but I see so many people break this rule all the time. They're waving the gun all over the place, loaded, and it's just plain dangerous. Whether your gun is loaded or unloaded, you want to make sure that you're not pointing your gun at anything you don't intend to shoot. So maybe you have a target on the wall because you're using a laser trainer at home. You want to make sure that you're not pointing that weapon at anything besides that target. Why do you want to do that even with a practice target? Because you want to reinforce the habits so that when your firearm is loaded and ready to go, you're not being dangerous. Now the third rule, something that you might have noticed already or might already do yourself. Hopefully you do. Keep your fingers straight and off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Now the reason why this is so important is because a lot of people, when they're at the range and I see this, they'll be shooting the gun and when they're done firing, their finger is still sitting on the trigger. And this increases your odds of having a negligent discharge where the gun goes off because you pulled the trigger when you didn't intend to pull the trigger. So keep your finger on the trigger guard or up above, right below the slide until you're ready to fire. Now the fourth firearm safety rule is keep your weapon on safe until you intend to fire. If you have a Glock, there is no safety. Your finger and your discernment is your safety. If you have a firearm like a 1911, there is a safety on here. Again, this is just another redundancy to practice safety. Now the last one and the additional one, which I don't hear as often, but I feel like it's gaining a little bit of popularity, is know your target, what lies beyond, and in between. Know your target, what lies beyond it, and in between. So what this means is, what you're shooting at, make sure you know what you're shooting at. A lot of people will fire into the dark, or they'll fire into a crowd, or they'll fire in a general direction. You need to be able to identify your target, know that it's a threat, and have an intent to take out that threat without causing harm to surrounding people or areas or whatever the case is. What lies beyond it? Same thing. If you have a threat that's in a clearing, but there's a crowd of people behind that target, it is no longer safe to fire at that target. In between, this means if you have a threat, say it's 25 meters out, and there are innocent civilians in between you and your threat, again, it is no longer safe to engage that threat. These are the things that you have to consider if you're going to own and carry a firearm. You're going to be holding more responsibility, therefore you need to be holding yourself to a higher standard. If you can put these weapon safety rules into practice, then your odds of having an accident go down drastically.